So I listen to Easy and Alan on their Just a Fantasy Fan podcast. During the show, you can live chat with Easy and Alan at LennyMelnickFantasySports.com. Rumour has it, Lenny only swings one way. I'm a fan of fantasy, so I listen. Now here's Easy and Chris Allen.
And that means it's a Wednesday night at 10 o'clock at LennyMelnickFantasySports.com, the Legend Sports Network. Except we weren't here last week on Wednesday. So sorry, everybody, that we weren't here last week. I'll get that here in just a second. But I do have Mr. Chris Allen back with me with partial green screen.
Yes.
Or no, wait, I'm not supposed to say that. But you have a background.
We're moving forward. Okay.
We're getting closer. We
getting
talked
there.
about the show. You're going to have to, you got some things to work on to get your lighting just right. See,
We talked about it.
Like right now, if I put a hat on, it'll mess up my lighting.
Oh, see,
Because,
yeah.
Actually, not as bad. See, like there, and that's because the colors are all goofy.
Yeah.
So you have to kind of set it up ahead of time for the colors you're going to be, because sometimes I'll set it all up and have it one shirt on, then I'll change my shirt or something, and then
it'll screw everything up.
Yeah, it messes all up. So you
gosh.
want to get the way you're going to be. I know it's complicated, right? It's
It
complicated.
is.
It's good.
Yeah.
So, but welcome everybody out there. Again, we weren't here last week. Most of the people on the Legend Sports Network know, because I actually did a roundtable the night before, because we talked about fantasy and life and how they are similar in a lot of cases. And Chris, this has been a bad 4 weeks for my fantasy team. Technically, or what I would be saying is for my family in general. We've had a lot of things going on. And it didn't get any better this week if you live in our area.
Yes.
So, and again, I know that Chris knew, I told you again why we didn't do a show last week. I had a mother-in-law pass away before last week's show. So that took place. And again, most people in this, because again, I talked about it the day before, people in the chat room at Lenny Melnick Fantasy Sports know that. The issue, what some people do know, and I talked to them too, but she passed away on Saturday. That Wednesday, we had just brought my father-in-law home from 2 weeks in the hospital dealing with colon cancer. So we went from that to then mom on Saturday. And now, then I just had a week of dealing with my wife, going through a lot of stuff, obviously, with the in-laws. And then here in our town, specifically my town, meaning people in my life it affected. And we had tornadoes here on Sunday or Monday night, Memorial Day weekend, which is why I couldn't do a show last night, because we still didn't have electricity for most of the day yesterday, and a few other issues we were dealing with. But I just want to say, for the few local people that do listen to us, our thoughts and prayers go out to you. Like I said, I actually, 2 guys on my softball team, actually 2 different players, 2 different homes, both lost their homes. This tornado that came through my town here, West Milton, actually, affected people I knew. Luckily nobody hurt. It's just material stuff, but it's a pretty big deal. And with technology, when a big storm like that comes by, you don't have cell service. Our cell service was iffy for a day and a half. We didn't have power part of the time. My daughter's she lives in Brookville, which also, they actually had a bigger tornado go through there than we had. Mm-hmm. Again, she's fine. They didn't lose anything material wise, but they haven't had water now for
2 days.
Yeah. So they're without water. What about you? I think you're a little farther south. You're actually just below.
I'm in Beaver Creek. And
Beaver Creek area. North Beaver Creek actually got a little bit, because that's
yes.
Where my boss lives. He actually had a tree go over on top of 2 cars.
Yes, I heard.
So, he was affected. You and your family, everything okay?
Yes, we're okay. The first or second one, both of them came about 5-ish miles from the house. The apartment complex that I drive by, and also the neighborhoods that I drive by on my way to work. I've driven by there the past couple of days, and it's devastating to see. It really is.
It's amazing, right?
Yeah, I mean, you can see into people's homes. Just houses completely destroyed. I drove actually to the west of our house. There's some farmland a little bit to the northwest of us. I drove past there. Farm completely demolished. A silo nearby also demolished, and so it's just, it's been really bad.
Right.
Up here.
I'm 57, and I still, at age 57, I've yet to see a tornado.
I've seen one.
I have physically never been where I've had to see one. Mrs. Easy grew up southwest of Xenia. She saw the Xenia tornado. She was she was a kid, but that was a big one in our area. Actually, one of the biggest of all time, I think they say, because that was like one tornado that went through like 3 states, and it was like a mile and a half wide. It was just
when was that? I forget when that was.
74.
Okay, I wasn't sure if it was early 80s or the 70s.
Sure, 74-ish and middle 70s, if I'm not mistaken, which puts her around 12 years old, which I think is what she said. So I think that's in that area. So again, pretty devastating 4 weeks between, like I said, father-in-law, surgery, being in the hospital, then coming home, mother-in-law, a lot of things. And again, we talked about last week, it's kind of how fantasy can go. Sometimes, what looks good turns bad in a hurry, and you just have to deal with it. You have to pick up, you have to keep going. You have to make moves, make trades, do things. You just have to, find the positive in stuff, and keep going. And that's why we're doing a show tonight. Like I said, wasn't able to do last night. Just again, I got power later yesterday, but like I said, I had a son with no power and a daughter with no water. So last night they were all here using our showers, our stuff. We were feeding them and everything. So and that'll go into my next little thing. The Brave Breed rescue organization that one of our favorite guests on the show, Wes Martin, is associated with. They were in an area where a lot of devastation happened in our town. So they were right out there. The good thing is they also got no major damage, a lot of trees, a lot of things they had to deal with, but no house that was, in that area. There's a lot of houses that just lost roofs and things like that. So they didn't have that issue or anything, but they didn't have water for a few days. So my wife has been taking water out to them and helping because they needed water for the dogs. They had water for themselves because they had bottled water.
Right.
But we were able to fill up, things and take out there so that they had water for the dogs. Because it's also not only did a lot of places not have electricity and stuff around here, it was also almost 90 degrees. So no air conditioning, no nothing. Anyone knows has dogs. If it's 90 degrees out, the dogs need water.
Yes.
So yeah, you have to do that. So we helped out with the Brave Breed rescue to get them situated and to help out. So again, anybody in our area, like I said, I don't know, anybody, everyone outside of your immediate family, anybody that you had to worry about or anybody that needs help or that you need to give a shout out or anything to?
Not offhand, because my parents and my sister and her family, they all live south of us. And so they pretty much had some rain, maybe a little bit of hail, and that's okay. Colleagues, most of them were okay. I didn't hear about anybody's house or anything getting destroyed. There was one of the guys that I work with, engineer. He's new to the area. He's actually from California. So this is the first tornado. And he's a younger guy living in an apartment complex right near the mall. And he didn't know what to do. And so he lives on the 3rd floor of an apartment complex, and he actually drove to Lowe's over near the Fairfield Commons area, driving past the local hospital there in order to find shelter, because he was so frantic to try and get out of the way of the storm. So he's fine. He just it was a pretty comical experience to retell.
Back to being prepared,
right?
Back to life and fantasy. You have to be prepared. I thought I was prepared, and I wasn't. Obviously, first of all, where technology reigns for these kind of things is we were watching Netflix. If anybody knows, when you're watching Netflix, you don't get warnings for storms. You don't get, anything like that. So I just happened to get a text from my neighbor who said, are you watching TV? And I'm like, yeah, I'm watching TV, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, well, what about the storm? I said, well, what about the storm? I'm watching Netflix. He goes, no. Right. You need to turn on TV, isn't Netflix. He said, no, you need to turn on the local, stuff. And then obviously, so I was watching that. Sirens went off in our town, which again, I've had that discussion now with a couple other people. I'm not sure what sirens mean anymore, which is a problem because when I grew up as a kid, these big sirens in the community only meant 2 things in Ohio. A tornado had been spotted, or, and I'm older than you, or Russia had launched missiles. And I know, Chris, I know you'll laugh at that, but that used to be part of.
No, you're right. You're right.
Also part in school, we learned when those went off to get under our desk. I now am old enough to know under a desk when a missile plate is not much help.
That's kindling.
Yes, I've laughed at that since, but I did grow up that's all those sirens meant. When the sirens meant when they went off, you went to cover. Nowadays, those sirens go off for too many reasons, and I think that's bad. Now, somebody might say all those reasons are still reasons to go find shelter, but they're more now they'll go off just if the weather is right for a tornado, meaning one hasn't been spotted, but, it could happen. So you could, the sirens also go off for major thunderstorms sometimes. They also go off now in our area for flooding. So, it's not, you hear the siren, go find shelter. Right. Now, I think the people that sound the siren would say yes, but I'm not even close to the water. So the flood, when it goes off for flooding, but yes, I don't, in your area, do they have sirens? Did you hear? I don't even know in Beaver Creek area.
I didn't hear them. We actually got the notifications on our phone.
Correct.
And then after that, we just immediately went into the bathroom.
All right. So
I didn't hear them.
You didn't hear sirens. Okay. One of the sirens in my town is truly across the street. So I don't miss it. And yes, my phones went off, but here's my problem. Eventually all my power, everything went off here. And at 11 o'clock at night, I don't know about you, 11 o'clock at night, my cell phone is barely breathing. My cell phone just gets plugged in at night, and it usually gets me through the day, so I don't think about it much.
Gotcha.
And on a holiday, I probably had more battery because it was a holiday and we were all home anyway.
Okay.
But again, if you're not prepared, once you lose all power, no TV, no nothing. I didn't even have a radio that took a battery, meaning for a small period of time, I had you
were not connected at all,
because I had no cell service now, no electricity. And obviously with no electricity, you can't say, hey, Alexa, play WHIO radio.
Right.
That's how I listen to the radio. I just say, Alexa, turn on WHIO, the news. So that's back to being prepared, back to fantasy. And we talked about that, set your lineup ahead of time. You never know. Sunday morning, your internet service goes out. Don't play tricks or try to do fancy things. Sometimes you just need to, be prepared and do these things. So, and I had just thrown radios away that had old batteries in them. I went, I'm never going to use these anymore. Yeah. My mother had bought me a weather radio years ago that had a special battery, and you could charge it like a regular cell phone. You could solar it. It had a solar panel on it, or it had a crank. So you could crank it and the battery would charge so that you always had this emergency radio. Well, now after 5 years, the battery in that sucker was useless. I'd crank and cranked and it never charged. So,
Right.
So we did just sit in the middle room. We don't have a basement, so we had to go to the bathroom and just sit there with no information, no nothing. It sucked.
Right. Yeah.
We were not prepared. And Mrs. Easy was more mad at me because I was just so pissed at myself that, I'm going to die unprepared. No one wants to die unprepared.
No.
I don't mind dying. I just don't want to die unprepared. I don't want to be the guy that goes, we lost a few people last night from a fire that they had 8 smoke alarms, but no batteries. I don't want to be that. And that's what it was. I felt.
So now you're going to go out and just buy analog radios.
Okay, 2 things happened. Afterwards, I figured out something on my cell phone that I've never used in my life. My cell phone I have has an FM radio built into it. I don't even know how many phones have that feature.
Yeah.
It dawned on me at the last, after it we were still there was still no electricity. I had nothing going on.
Right.
I think the emergency had passed, but I still had no information. And again, with no internet service and no Wi-Fi, obviously your phone is useless.
Yeah.
Except the radio feature worked. Now, I never used it before. I at first couldn't make it work. You have to have headphones plugged into it because it uses the headphone as the antenna.
Okay.
Cable for your headphone is an antenna. So I plugged in, a cable for the headphones. And then luckily I had a Bluetooth speaker that had an input. So I plugged that. So me and my son and my wife could sit and listen to the radio then finally. So I did. So that's good. I now know my cell phone. But the problem is, again, your battery's weak. I didn't know how long my battery is going to last. I didn't know how long power was going to be out.
Right.
I have 2 of those cell phone battery pack charger things, that you can plug your phone in and it'll charge it. It's a little power pack thing.
Right. Yeah.
They're dead. I wasn't prepared. No one charged. I never use them. I don't charge. I use them for specific things and I'll charge the day before, so I have them. But again,
it doesn't have to be that day.
Yeah. That day isn't,
just the worst possible day.
Right. Bad day, bad planning. I wasn't prepared, but I am more prepared now. So I ordered a new battery for my emergency weather radio. So I'll get that working. So next time I will be prepared. It just sucked.
It's just a bad day for everybody.
Then you had to go to bed that night. There's no air conditioning. It was muggy and humid now. And, at that point, my son's phone got a little service. He could send a text.
Mm-hmm.
And it would say sending for like 3 or 4 minutes, and finally it would just get through. So we were able to find out because we had heard then that Brookville was hit pretty bad, and obviously my daughter's there.
Mm-hmm.
My daughter wouldn't text me back. I'm like, you're kidding me. She fell asleep. She went to sleep. Again, if you know the area, we had two tornadoes came through. Well, I think now they're saying 5 to 9 actually came through.
Oh, they actually touched down? I heard there were 5 or 6 different locations. I didn't know they all touched down.
There were 5 in the Dayton area that were F3s.
Right.
And then there was more in the area, Salina, Milton. There was a few in the other areas, but one of the F3s was in Brookville, where my daughter was. But same thing, their sirens went off early, but then that was for the northern one that missed them and actually came to Milton. Well, after that, she thought it was over, so she went to bed. So she slept through the sirens and everything. Luckily, she was on the north end, and they didn't have any damage or anything.
Exactly.
Because she thought it was over. She didn't even know. She just thought once one tornado went through, that was the end.
That was it.
Yeah. Which is
how often do 2 come through the same area in a single night?
Well, actually, it can happen more often. If the situation is right. You can have multiple. Oklahoma just like a week ago had like 28 in a day, or something like that.
Yeah, true.
And that's why I said I saw somebody tweet something about Ohio where we had 5, in an evening or whatever. And somebody from Oklahoma said, hold my beer. Hold my beer. We had 22, they have like some massive number out there, but
really, so we're like gatekeeping tornado damage now.
Yeah, right.
That's okay.
Yeah, right. Oklahoma is, that's for sure.
Well, I know they get bad weather, but goodness gracious, man.
I know. But now that was the thing, though. Then at work we were talking, well, what's worse? A hurricane or a tornado? Every place in our country has that one thing. The coasts,
earthquakes.
The West Coast has the earthquakes,
right?
And forest fires. They just seem to always be on fire out there. The East Coast has hurricanes. The South Coast has hurricanes. The North has blizzards and type, stuff.
Yep.
In the Midwest, we have tornadoes.
Right.
It's just one of those things. And now the hurricane people go, hurricanes are like 5, a hurricane is like 10 tornadoes all in a room together, and they spin for hours, hours and hours and hours. But my argument is, and I get it, storm wise, if you're in the middle of it, a hurricane is worse than a tornado, I think, based on what I know.
I hope to never find out.
Because the size of it, they're just massive.
Okay, yeah.
The difference is, to me, the scary part about us in the Midwest is a tornado can happen in a minute. Meaning you can just be sitting here and the weather is just right. Boom, it comes out of the sky and you're hit.
Right.
A hurricane, you sometimes know 2 weeks and really you have an idea that it's going to hit somewhere in 2 weeks. So start preparing. I always watch, they're always hammering the wood, the boards on their windows and doing all that.
Yeah.
Now, tornadoes, we don't have time to nail boards.
No.
The siren goes off. We go to the bathroom. That's what you do in Ohio.
That is it.
You have minutes.
Yes.
So I get it that one's more devastating or bigger and all that, but you do have time involved. So I don't know. You're right. I don't think we should be nitpicking who has the worst disaster situations.
That's just wild to me.
But we do have tornadoes here in Ohio.
Oh, we got those.
I've yet to see one. 57. I've yet to see an actual tornado. Where were you and when were you? When did you physically see a tornado?
My dad was stationed at Tinker Air Force Base. That's in Oklahoma.
Same. I tell you, them Oklahoma ones, them bastards have tornadoes just in the middle of the afternoon for fun.
Yeah, and actually it happened in the afternoon. Yeah, and it came out of nowhere. I mean, it really did. It literally came out of nowhere, and we had to run into the house.
That's bad. Nobody hurt, obviously. You made it.
No, we were okay, but just
hopefully it was far enough away you could see it, but it wasn't necessarily coming right at you, that type thing.
Yeah, we could see it, and also the winds. Like we were far enough away from the actual funnel that it was just like the winds were kicking up everything around, so there was debris flying and all that.
Right.
But yeah, it was. Yeah, you could see it.
All right. Well, we've probably bored everybody, but I don't. Again, this was going to be a quick show. I wanted to make sure we got on the air tonight and gave a reason why we weren't here. Because again, most people who are listening to us aren't here in Ohio. They don't know what's going on. Oh, yeah. And, it's something to talk about. Sometimes you need to vent, and get it out there. We'll talk a few things, sports here, and then we're going to get a little bit more into our topic, which obviously now we're going to have multiple parts. We're going to get more into our, setting up an awesome fantasy league and something on that. So we'll get to that here in a few minutes. But let's tidy up some other sports things. The first thing I want to mention is, again, I said earlier, Wes Martin and his Brave Breed thing. They are having their golf outing to raise money for the Pooches. Saturday, July the 6th at Locust Hills. So we'll talk afterwards. We're going to try to get something together so the show can, be out there, and then maybe we even do something from the place and do,
that'd be fun.
Yeah, we can at least, if anything, we'll record some audio and play it back on the show. We can figure out a way to do something live. We can do that. I know they have shows on Saturday on the network, but I don't think any of them start till I think there's one at 10 o'clock and then one at noon. We might be able to sneak something in there.
Okay.
Or at minimum, we'll record something.
Yeah.
Also, I'm going to put it out there. I'll post it here later this week. We have about 4 or 5 weeks, but I'll get some out there later. Wesley gave me the information, and we'll post it on our website. And during the next few shows over the next few weeks, I'll have a link made up so that people can go. Because what I'm hoping is maybe Lenny Melnick, fantasysports.com. I've talked to a few younger people. Obviously, Wesley's a young person from our area, and there's some younger people that would be interested in it, but financially, it's a little harder for them maybe to go, and drop the money. So maybe we can see if we can't put some out there and try to raise some funds that maybe we could. I get somebody to sponsor some players that want to play, but maybe there's people out there that want to maybe donate and help the organization. And maybe we can do it this way where they can do that by maybe sponsoring a player or something like that. And
sure.
So we'll get some of that out there. Again, we took a show off, and I know we talked the last time about how excited we might be if Tiger Woods wins back-to-back majors. He didn't even make the cut. So we did not miss out on any major Tiger talk or Tiger major talk, whatever you want to say it.
Right.
I have my notes that George Foreman is still the number one comeback.
I agree.
Tiger needed to win back-to-back for me to even consider.
Yeah.
So George Foreman is still my he's still my, comeback athlete, and
I can't argue with that. I think that's a good one.
I think it is a good one. It's going to be hard.
Yeah.
And I think Tiger still has opportunities.
Yes.
To get there. And I think we have maybe another week or two before the U.S. Open. So we got another major coming up in a few weeks. So, but back-to-back would have been a thing. Him just winning one or two more majors in the next 5 years still would be a big deal. But we'd still have to go back and decide if that's better than what George Foreman did. But actually, if he'd have won a couple majors back-to-back, that would have been a pretty big thing. So, the next the next topic, football-wise, that was talked about today, and then I'm going to spin it into something to go with our talk about setting up leagues and all that. Because, like I said, we're normally, me, I wait till 10 minutes left, but we'll try.
Right, we're getting a little early tonight.
Well, I didn't have been a long week for me.
Right,
where I didn't even have the internet and the electricity.
That's true. That's true.
But the big thing is that the NFL's Player Association has come out now and warned their players to start saving money now, that a work stoppage, I don't know, the way it reads to me, sounds like they're already throwing in a towel for something that's going to happen roughly in the season 2021, I think, is when the actual contract comes up. But they're saying if they get locked out, it would actually be before that.
Yes.
So what do you think, or what do you know, or what have you heard, if anything, about this? Obviously I don't know if it's the president or executive or who the head guy is with the Players Association, but he has come out now and told the players, start saving your money. A lockout seems to be a pretty a pretty good chance that a lockout could take place. What do you think of him bringing that out and putting it out in the public? And what do you know about a lockout situation?
I think a potential lockout has been discussed in fantasy circles for, I want to say, about the last year or so, especially during when the Colin Kaepernick, Eric Reed, those individual cases were going on. That was part of the discussion. The multiple suspensions that were handed down across the league for pot usage, that's also a part of the discussion. And then just the mental health discussion overall has been many of the issues that players, that former players, analysts, GMs, not necessarily GMs, take that back, but mostly the folks in those realms have discussed the fact that the NFLPA has not been, the players have not been taken care of.
Okay.
And the possibility of a lockout was imminent.
Okay. But that's more strike to me, meaning the players aren't happy. They're not going to play. Lockout means that the owners are going to push, the trade talk or the trade talks, the money talks or the contract talks, because a lockout means they're going to say, we're not going to let the players play.
Right.
Make them suffer a little bit so that they will, I would assume, not want to give up as much or not accept as much. And and I guess they're trying to cut the legs off early so players don't have. So to me, a lockout, I get it. Both. I mean, the owners only do it because they think that's the only leverage they have in some cases. So is that the point? Are they so scared of the players that they think a lockout has to be what they throw out this early?
Right, because from the sound of it, and that's where the discussion of a lockout came from, was that because the players and the Players Association, I believe
they want bigger changes.
Right, that more changes than what the owners would be able to stomach all at one time. So the idea of both sides being able to come together and agree to the things that the players would want seemed to be more or less a pipe dream. So the only recourse would then be a lockout.
Right. All right. To roll this into fantasy, then
we're screwed.
Well, obviously we'd be screwed maybe, and that was my thing. We'll be screwed two ways. Obviously, we're screwed out of just the enjoyment of watching the sport we love to watch.
Right.
But also the other concern I have is if it happens before the season, do you just call off the fantasy season? Meaning, there's maybe not going to be a season, or it's hard to determine what's going to happen. So let's just not even have a league or a fantasy season that year. Or does it mean, no, we're still going to draft, we're going to prepare and all that, so that if it goes off, we're ready. So, and then obviously if you do that, you have to have some stipulations of, okay, if we're going to start a league and then there's a lockout, what are we going to do? Are we going to finish the league out? Are we going to roll it over to the next year? Are we just giving money back? So obviously there's multiple things that we'd have to do there. So do you have an opinion on either of those? Let's say obviously this is a decision we actually would have to have next year, because this year is set. This is something that we'd be talking next year for sure. So how would you do it? Would you say, no, we're still going to draft and act like there's going to be a season, even though the odds are there's not going to be at least a week one, let's say? I would assume if it gets this close, that's going to be the first rumor, hey,
right.
We'll at least lose 1 week or 4 weeks. So do you still draft and prepare, or do you just say, well, screw it, they've ruined it for us anyway, we're just not going to do any league? Or do you draft and then make some rules in your league to say, here's how we're going to deal with it?
I think the easiest way to do it, well, take that back, and probably not the easiest way, but the best way in my mind to do it would be then to still hold the draft, but you'd have to push back some of those drafts that you would want to use later, like earlier in the season, because some folks like drafting in late July, early August.
Right.
But I would push those back to late August, early September, so you have a better feel for what the league is going to do. And then you would draft it, like you just mentioned, with the stipulations of, well, if the league folds and we have to, and it holds out until week 3, week 4, this is what we'll do. And if the league completely folds, then we'll do X, Y, Z.
And that's what I was thinking, right? In my mind, when I thought about this question, when I was writing it earlier today, was like, well, you'd almost have to write it in quarters, meaning if we go week 1 through 4 and we start playing, we're just going to kind of act like the season was normal. If it's week 5 through 8, then we're going to have to do this. If it's 8 through, 12, I guess they'd be thirds, because I'm thinking in fantasy you're only doing 13. So you'd actually almost have to have 3 different options. What you're going to do, including one that would say there's no season at all.
Yeah.
And
I mean, that's what I think would probably crater most of the fantasy industry, because I would think most of the fantasy industry, like, it depends on casual leagues, those leagues where you get 10 guys together, everybody wants to try and get together and do a league. And if you have to try and, factor in all of those stipulations and all that, most people won't want to play, because they're going to sit there and be like, right, well, I got to wait until week 3 or week 4, and then we might not have a league. Right. So,
I was already saying replacement draft, AJ McCarron would be the number 1 pick.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's right. I mean, in there, a couple notes, people are on the player side and all that. Again, these owners are billionaires, and they're and I don't even like to say millionaires because I'm not sure in the NFL if the average, I'm almost positive the average income is less than $1 million. So
yes, that is absolutely correct.
Are not millionaires. So you can't, I've already heard that already. Millionaire. This is billionaires fighting with millionaires. And, I just have a $30,000 a year job. I don't give a shit, and my argument is no, a lot of those players aren't millionaires, and by the time
absolutely true.
Taxes out and, again, yes. Are they making a decent living to play a game? Yes, but they're not rich or wealthy. And, most of them only play 4 or 5 years. So, I agree. I'm on the player side pretty much, but yes, this is billionaires versus, 100,000 heirs probably, or 300,000 heirs. I think the average is in the 300,000 range, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
That wouldn't surprise me.
You have players that, and actually it might be higher now. That's probably a number I've heard a long time ago. Cause I think now the minimum's 210 or something like that.
Yeah, I think so. And I just pulled up, I go to Spotrac, or however you want to pronounce it, Spotrac, Spot Rec, in order to look at contracts. And I just pulled up the Patriots cap hits. And now for players that are actually making sizable amounts of money, so let's say like 3 million and above, there's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of the 52-man roster,
right,
making that are actual quote unquote millionaires.
Right. Now roster 52, but then you do have, and I know some of them are. The way the Players Association goes, I think people who are on the practice teams and all that now are part. It's weird. I think they get some benefits, but not full benefits. But their income also is part of the deal too.
Right. So now some of the guys, you got some guys making, league minimum, which is somewhere in the 900,000 to $1 million range. So technically they are millionaires, I guess, by contract. But after you take taxes out, they're 100,000 heirs, I guess, if you really want to look at it that way.
How many games out of 13 would have to be played to where you would say, okay, we could still do a league?
I'd say 10.
So you think if we lose the first 3, if the first 3 or 4 are done, then you don't think you could run a true fantasy league?
Yeah, because I think you need enough for to make at least a decent amount of waiver claims
to get you into the playoffs. Meaning,
13 is the normal for fantasy. So if we're playing at least,
if you had 10 weeks to play regular season,
but 10, it'd have to be an odd number, right, in order to force tiebreakers. So I guess 11, if we're really being honest. 9 really doesn't. That doesn't really do it for me. I guess
now you're saying that now, but if your option is that or not play at all, that's what you have to put you have to.
Right.
You know what? Yeah, this is gonna suck, but I'm still playing fantasy.
Yeah, I guess it would suck for the larger. You couldn't do like a 14.
No, if anything, now you would maybe have maybe you would do an 8-team league, or
you'd have to do that, or 8 or a 10-team league.
Playoffs, put the emphasis on the playoffs and say, hey, we're gonna if we get, let's say if we get 9 weeks, and you did a 10 player team, then at least you'd play each person in your league one time and then bam into the playoffs, that type thing.
That could make some, I can see some sense in that. You just have to tailor the size of the league for the number of weeks or number of games that you would have in the season.
And then obviously there would be people who say, well, I'll play daily instead and all that. But there's still, again, I don't get the camaraderie with daily that you get with
100%. And that would absolutely destroy dynasty leagues, because then you've got some players that are taking the year off, or they might not. They might not play some games.
I have to think this through. And again, Mal Powell in the chat room, welcome. Kevin out there now, welcome. Again, a random weird topic that we came up on, and I don't know. I guess part of me would want to say, okay, then let's go ride it as many weeks as we can, and maybe each week during the actual strike, you come up with other things to gamble or bet on as a group, or
that'd be something to bet on how many games are going to play.
Or you just put money in the pot, and say, hey, all right, each week we're gonna put money in the pot. Everybody put in, something, and then if this happens, that's the payout, and this has happened, so you can go all week going,
right?
Oh, if they only signed the contract today, I'd be the winner. I don't know. We had to come up. There's got to be ways.
Vegas would have so many prop bets on like when the trade negotiations would be over.
Yeah.
How many players would actually, kind of cross the quote unquote picket line.
Some excitement there.
Yeah. And you got to think like, what about some of the older players? Like, so let's assume, I don't know, if Frank Gore makes it to the 2020 season or the 2021 season.
That's possible.
It's entirely possible the way he's been playing. So do you think that if they just like stop working, he's going to want to come back? I wouldn't want to do that.
Right. What I think I'd rather bet on other stuff than come up with a way to bet on or gamble with. Let's say they do. If they do what I say, let's say they come up with other ways to field teams. Mm-hmm. Would you still play fantasy at that point? Or would you only play fantasy if it's committed to I don't want to use the word real players, but
the current talent pool.
Current talent, right? Would you have a problem with if they lock out the players, but then they say, okay, we're going to bring in another group or another batch of, one of the other kind of groups.
All the AAF guys, like they might have
that, or do you think no? That would because obviously then now you don't have the information on the players. To me, it becomes locked.
And that's where you lose your edge. You have to do research on a whole new batch of players. I would lose interest. I mean, to be quite honest with you, right. I mean, we're kind of set on who we've researched, the way that they fit into their offenses and whatnot. So at the last minute to have to kind of completely overhaul and redo everything, I'd have less interest in doing that.
All right. Well, we got to move on because we did end up ruining all 45 minutes to get to our main topic. We're terrible.
That's what we do.
We're terrible. Malpow is saying, right, Sirius XM now is pretty much NFL now, 24.
They lose it.
Don't talk baseball much anymore.
Right.
They would struggle if the league was to fold, or at least the word fold isn't right. The NFL is not going to fold. They might lose a season, and I think that's what a lot of the rumor was already this morning, that the way the talk's already going, the chances of a whole season being lost is possible, but it is a little scary. And again, they put all their eggs in that basket now. So we'll see. Again, we only have 15 minutes. This was supposed to be a quicker show, actually, if I could have done so. But we started 2 weeks ago on what probably now is going to be a 9-part series. I don't even know how this.
We'll be talking about this in July.
I know, but it's fun. I think this is fun. But we're trying to come up with the best league settings or league rules to come up with what we would want to call the most awesomest or the bestest or the greatest or
most
we just think would be a fun league to be a part of or that would make the league a good league. Mm-hmm. And last time I had pencil issues. I didn't have one. So I kind of went by memory, but I think what we first came up with was the size of the league.
Yep.
We didn't agree 100%, but we decided between 10 and 12 to make the perfect league. You want 10 or 12. And we kind of did that because we thought if it was a very competitive league, like an industry league, if you have just 10 players, it makes those weekly decisions harder because there's a lot more players. So now you have to pay more attention. It's not just sit and forget anymore at that point.
Yes.
If you're going to do a home/mixed league, we thought 12 was the number because then the player pool at least is being used. There's still a few people on the, free agent here and there and all that. And there's some flexibility. And I think we both kind of agreed those would be the numbers there. The other thing we came up with is use one of the top 3, I'll use the word 3 sites, try to make it a good league, to make it an awesome league. You got to have a website that's usable.
I agree.
And understandable, meaning the players need to have an app. There needs to be, so to have a good league, you need to play what we felt was one of the top 3. Now, I threw in there at the end of that conversation, though, the problem is when we get into the next section, which may or may not be tonight, and you start setting up the rules that you think that you need to have. I mean rules, I'm saying the actual playing rules.
The settings and all that, yeah.
Settings, you need to obviously pick. You have to have flexibility in whatever app or web portal you use for your fantasy, so that they can at least allow you to set up for those, for the settings you want. So
Right.
that was one of those. The one we kind of was an argument a little bit was the dollar amount. And I'm kind of agree with you. I get competitive on a $10 league. I get that. But we kind of thought between $50 and $100.
Got to jump. Yeah, we got to raise the stakes.
Good competitive league, and you got a lot of decent players. You got to have enough money to keep them in it. The investment has to be there.
What we say, $50?
We said 50 to 100.
Okay.
As at least a minimum, meaning obviously if you go higher, that's fine. If people's budgets can go higher, but
sure.
We felt for the average home player, even industry players. I mean, most people in this industry aren't super rich people. A $50 league to most people in this industry is a competitive high. That's a lot. $100 leagues are definitely a big investment, but I talk to people every day that are in leagues that they spend $200, $300, $400. So, but I do agree, free and $10 leagues, they can be fun and enjoyable. And I get in some of those, but if you're trying to make the perfect settings and the perfect league, you have to have a little juice. You got to have some juice in that. So, set that. Then that threw another wrinkle into it that we thought that maybe if you had a higher to make the perfect league, and this is where we kind of left off, was to make a really great league, would having weekly payouts be something to consider?
Yes.
I've heard of this.
I've done one.
But usually they're kind of pretty set things, or it's just the team who wins are the most points. But what I brought up was, I thought random things for 13 weeks, meaning, and we even talked about it, like, a flip, you spin a dial and whatever, it hits on,
like an award or something like that.
An award or a $10, or my point is some kind of a payout. Again, another way to keep you interested. So if your team's out of it, you still might have a way to win something. And I agree with that. I think to figure out a weekly payout. And we even said, even if it's just top defense score that week or top kicking score. So your team sucked, but your kicker got 47 points. Boom. You might win $25. So that would make you always set your lineup, I think. Cause again, I mean, there's weeks where, if things are going well and I don't have to drop my good kicker, I might go, I'll go without a kicker on my bye week, rather than pick up or drop. Some people will call that cheating. Some people say you have to have, and we'll get into that when we get into the actual settings. Do you have to have a full roster or something? But my point would be, in a league where that week the payout is something crazy, like, top defense or top kicker or who knows what, you would come up with. And I even said, well, maybe make that another show down the road where we just come up with 13 random but fun things that you could, use to, do payouts at any given time. So those were the things we already have now. So the next thing that I thought we should come up with was, before we get into real points and scoring, was PPR versus non-PPR versus half-point PPR. I hear all kinds of arguments, and I see, unfortunately, this is one where I'm just pick one and I'll play that way. But I just thought right now, it's such a big topic. I think it's important to set the perfect league. You need to have at least at a minimum, that's usually the number one thing people talk about, PPR, non-PPR, or half-point PPR.
Yeah.
I quickly just thought, well, to make the perfect league, it has to be half-point PPR. That way you make both sides happy. Do you accept that? Or for the perfect league, do you like the idea of more points and a lot more scoring? And obviously PPR gives you that. More points, more scoring. Some people think makes the league a little more entertaining.
Yep.
And then there's I'll argue for the last one, which is non-PPR at all, which are your old timers in most cases.
Boring.
You should just get right. You should just score. You should just get points when you guys score. It's end of story. So what would you go if you're putting together the perfect league? which scoring do you think you need to do?
If it was just picking between those three settings and those three settings alone,
I think you can tweak all three of those a little bit, but I think okay, now you got me. I have to ask, what other than those three, what else would you want?
Oh, I would take PPR, but I would also tag on points, PP1D, points per first down. Okay. So that gives a little bit more. That gives you the wide receivers now get a boost. And then also running backs get
into scoring. And obviously we started too late to get into scoring. I think that'll be next week. We'll get into scoring.
Yeah.
I think you can add that regardless which one you go into to a point, you know. But
and I throw in a tight end premium on it, like a 1.25.
Well, okay,
up to 1.5.
That's where we're going next. After if we do, I really do. I fall in the middle of, and Malpal does say average fans like points. So if you're making the league, I think points are what you want, and that's why I think PPR
scoring like 140 points in your league. It's so much fun.
But I am one of those in the middle that just thinks half point PPR just to me is the right number because that keeps the scoring a little high but realistic. But I'm going to sway with you. I think though, if you're going to add weirder scoring, not weirder, if you're going to add the first downs and some other things in there, then you might as well just go with PPR to begin with, right? I mean,
yeah.
Okay, so we're going to say to make the perfect league, it needs to be a PPR league. So we're going to, that's it. We're not right. It's going to be a PPR league. If you're going to make the perfect fantasy football league, we believe you want to have points. You want to have scoring. Again, some people will argue, well, you want it to be realistic like real football. It's not real football.
You don't want that.
We're drinking beer, eating tacos in our room, watching. You know, it's not real football. So
you want it to be fun. I mean,
points.
Yeah.
All right, PPR. We're going with PPR. All right, the next thing, and again, we'll see how much we go here. We're down to about 10 minutes to go. 2 quarterback or 1 quarterback?
2 QB every time.
I agree. I would agree also. 2 QB. Again.
Well, take that back. I would qualify that with saying it should be super flex because there's a difference between super flex and 2 QB.
I just broke my pencil. I even made sure I had a pencil tonight, Chris.
Oh, no.
I got a pen. Okay, so you think 1 QB and 1 flex is the way to go. So a super flex league or 2 QB. So the options would be 1 quarterback, 2 QBs, or 1 quarterback and a super flex.
Yeah, super flex all the way. I think that is the comparison to doing like half point PPR.
1 QB, 1 super flex.
Yeah.
I will agree. The issue I have, if I'm going to be the devil's advocate here,
oh boy,
I'll go all the way back to if you're going to make it a 10 player, let's say it's a very competitive league with 10 people that are in the industry that know what's going on. Two quarterback leagues, again, really cause for a lot of strategy. You really have to consider dropping and picking up quarterbacks. You have to consider, drafting a third or a fourth one, maybe. Yep. So just 2 quarterbacks in a 10-team league. If your perfect league's only going to have 10 owners, the 2 QB thing can really put pressure on what you're doing. Even on draft day, you have to go, geezy peasy, I really would like to have this guy, but I only have 2, I got 2 quarterbacks. I only got 3 picks left. I've got to go quarterback, even though this rookie or this young guy I like is available. So that's kind of my argument a little bit, is a 2 QB with 10 teams. Because the key to me with 10 teams is, if each guy has 2, that's 20 quarterbacks. There's still plenty of quarterbacks out there. And the odds are there still would be a quarterback or 2 on the waiver wire every week that probably isn't on a roster. So
sure.
So I kind of, again, it's back to when you start thinking this stuff through, it's not as simple as 2 QB. It's 1 super flex. So yeah, I think
quarterback is deep this year.
Yeah, it is. But that's my point though. As soon as you change it from 1 QB to 1 super flex, you take out a lot of decision making, because some people go, you know what, I'll roll with 2 quarterbacks every time, but if things go well and I'm already headed to the playoffs and my one quarterback's bye week isn't until week 10, I'll just put in a wide receiver and one QB. So
Right.
you've taken those decisions of dropping, you 2 QB forces them to have a QB.
And that's what it should do, because a lot of people, even in
Let's-
one quarterback leagues, they'll hoard quarterbacks because they just want to draft for their bye week.
The last show, I put that pressure on you because this is hard. I don't want us to do what me and you would love to play in or what we think is best. We're trying to come up with what, if we really sat down and went, okay, I might not like this, but it does make it more competitive. So,
and I think that's what Superflex allows.
You think Superflex? I think 2 QB puts more pressure on you. The Superflex actually, in my opinion, gives you a little out. That's all.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. That's why I would argue that it makes it more fun versus forcing you to then draft more quarterbacks.
Which would be my argument. I would agree. In a 12-team mixed home league, I'd go 1 QB, 1 Superflex every time. In a 10-person competitive league, I want to put the pressure on my owners.
You want them drafting
have to make trades on week 7. They realize their quarterback bye weeks are screwed up.
People are going to be starting Nick Foles or something like that.
Right. JR Sly says Superflex sucks. All right. That really helps us, but doesn't tell us what you prefer, though. Thanks, JR, for that great input. Kevin is also saying Superflex. And again, I agree. Home league, 12-team Superflex.
Yeah.
I believe 10-team competitive league. I like putting the pressures on the owners having to make decisions.
You're a mean commish.
It's not mean. It's if it's going to be a competitive league. I watch some of these. I watch some of these leagues that are industry leagues, and the decision making is so lame. You're just playing your 8 best picks and you're putting in a few rookies and you're done.
You do your late round strategy and all that, and it's easy.
Yeah, right. I'm trying to make it hard, so maybe we should have preferenced that. So, all right, 1 QB, 1 Superflex, 12-team mix, 10-team. We're saying probably 2 QB.
I'm with that.
All right. Then I think, to me, then I like. Would you then agree with 2 RB, 3 wide receiver, or 2 RB, 2 wide receiver, and 1 regular flex?
No, 2 running back, 3 wide receiver.
Okay, I agree.
Yeah,
right. I don't even think that's a debate. No. Then 1 tight end.
1 tight end.
1 tight end. I agree. And then, even though it's a super flex, do you still want to keep a flex?
Yes, I would still do a running back, wide receiver, tight end flex.
Wide receiver, tight end, RB in the flex. I think I'd agree with all that. I don't like 2 tight ends. I don't like any of that weird stuff personally. I don't have a problem with the tight end scoring changing. I think you mentioned that earlier, but stats have proven that an extra half point on tight end doesn't mean anything.
It changes people's strategies.
No,
but it doesn't.
It changes stupid people's strategy. But
exactly, but it doesn't do anything.
0.5 means nothing.
No,
nothing.
No.
It really at the end of the day, the 0.5 on tight ends who only get 4 balls thrown to them doesn't mean anything.
No.
I like standard. I'm old school. So JR has disagreed with everything that we've said today. He's old school, which means just lame. He just, just flip a coin every week and pay out the guy that has heads.
Different strokes for different folks. I'm not going to hate on it.
JR stroking, that's for sure. All right. So 1 QB, 1 super flex, home league, 10 team league, competitive, 2 QBs. Then we're going with 2 RBs, 3 wide receivers, 1 tight end, 1 regular flex is what I call it, or just a flex.
Yeah, just a flex.
Wide receiver, tight end, and running back.
Right.
I'm good with all that.
Yeah.
The next thing, and again, we're gonna add a little bit to today's list. The next thing then, and it's hard for me to break, but I'm a believer in. You still need to have the kickers and you need to have the defenses.
Yes.
I know there's a lot of people out there who think not. And I'm probably going to be the flip to most people back to, I would say in a 10-person competitive league, if you want to do away with them, I'm fine with it. But I think in a mixed 12 home leagues, I think you have to add it because there's more mistakes that are getting made.
Yeah, it adds some volatility.
Yeah, well, especially on draft day, people who take defense in round 8,
kicker in the 10th round.
Right. Real strategy comes with standard, with more players. See, I kind of agree a little bit, but not all the way. We talked about that last time we did this, JR. I think what makes it competitive is having less teams in your league. 10 competitive players makes the player pool. I just don't like that people just draft their top 8 draft picks and that's who they play, because there were so many people in the draft that now you're just making little decisions. I want you to have to decide, am I starting, which running back do I have to sit this week? Which means you have to look up at matchups. You have to look and see who's playing who. You have to do some of that stuff. So,
right.
So I'm for kicker and I'm for defense. I understand why you wouldn't do it in a competitive league, because I just think now it's guessing, but I just think it's part of the game. It should be part of fantasy. And I know the opposite of what I said earlier is this isn't football, so it shouldn't matter. But
true, but I think that's a part of fantasy football. And I would say if you're going to get rid of those positions, just tack on another flex position. That would be my compromise to that. That if enough people wanted to get rid of the defense and kicker, just tack on another flex.
The problem I have with that, if you're already starting 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers and a tight end, and obviously you have 1 flex, so you literally could be starting 3 running backs, 3 wide receivers, and a tight end. You start adding more flexes and more stuff. It's back to, again, you're taking the decision-making out a little bit, because now you have a spot to play that 4th guy you picked up that ended up going off, and now you have 4 really good players. I don't know. I just think if you don't have them, don't have them. To me, that shouldn't change the other settings, but I'm a believer in we're keeping them. This is our league. We're making it our league. Right. And I do, and you know what? I had that, but I thought we'd do that a little bit later. When we start talking the little, at the end, I thought we'd then tweak some odd settings. And yes, there's some of these leagues now that do the coaching staff,
the head coach and all that.
You can do the head coach, or you can, you draft a whole running back you draft
teams running back,
team wide, some of that stuff. Again, I could see where in some of these weird leagues they do that. I think they do that in some of these weird leagues to
you can do like points for return yardage and all that.
The experts have to think a little bit.
Yeah.
So I've never played in any of them that did that you get points. I didn't even know. I've seen it, but I don't know how you score for the coaching staff.
If like the team wins, they get a point.
Oh, and that's all it is, team point. Okay.
That's the way that I've seen it done in the past. I was on in an IDP league that did it that way.
So if your coach wins the game, you get a point.
Right.
That's just the way it works.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. Because I have that as a thing down the others. Because I played in leagues where, and I think it's ESPN, where you can turn it was defaulted on 4 or 5 years ago, where you got 1 point. Every player got a point if they won, and you lost a point for every player that lost their game. And now that's default. You have to now turn that on. If you want to have a win, give your team, meaning if, whatever players on your team won that game, those are points. And obviously you get an extra 10 or 12 points if the team's won. But if a team loses, you get a -1. So
sure.
All right. So that's it. We have 2 RBs, 3 wide receivers, 1 tight end, 1 standard flex, 1 kicker, 1 defense. Is there anything else you would add to that standard roster?
No, I think that's a pretty solid start, honestly.
All right. So we're going to end part 2 of this 47-part series of how to make the perfect, because we're going to tweak this eventually and get into some fun settings and decide. We now have 10 to 12 players. Use a top site. minimum buy-in $50 to $100, weekly payouts, PPR, 1 QB, 1 super flex, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, 1 tight end, 1 regular flex, 1 kicker, 1 defense. If you want to keep it a competitive league, you could switch the super flex to a second QB. So that's technically our roster settings, our standard league settings just to get it started. So that means next week, part 3, we'll get into actual scoring next week. I think that's the next part. Am I missing something? We went general settings to get your league started up. Now we went to your roster. Next week we'll go into the scoring. Is there anything else? I mean, and then I figure the last part of this will be little oddball tweaks. Anything fun we want to add or whatever. And maybe the last thing will have to be payouts. To make the perfect league, got to have your payouts set up right.
Yeah, and that's where we get into like the awards and and all that stuff. And like playoff structure and all that.
Take all. I get winner take all. Some pay everyone that makes the playoffs, and I know people that will argue that's not fair. The winner of the Super Bowl should take it all, but that's not. I mean, so again, if it's a perfect league, we have to look into, are we going to play in this perfect league? Well, the answer to that is kind of that's a goal that towards the end we might set this up and put it out.
People that want to do it, sure, why not?
And we'll get the perfect league out there and set up. But that's part of my point anyway on this. To have the perfect league and for people to be going, man, this league is damn near perfect. You got to have all this in writing. You got to know all this before you can even start having people join it.
Absolutely.
You can't just have people saying, I want to be in your league. What are the rules? Who cares? I just want to be in it. No. The perfect league needs to have people deciding to be in or out of your league based on what the settings are. So, we'll have this all done in writing. We'll decide what we got here. And then, we will. And trust me, Mal Pow and, Kevin, JR, if you guys are out there and you're participating every week, I think Mal Pal's been here and I think Kevin was here the first time too.
Yeah.
When we talked about, so yes, if you're participating, we'll remember you. And if you're interested, we'll keep that in mind when we finally, get this in writing. We will eventually have the perfect fantasy football league where everyone will want to join. Everyone will go, why isn't every league like this? You know what? That's my goal. I want everyone to go, damn, that's the league I want to be in. I need
to get in that league.
Right. The Easy Kill Invitational. That's the.
Ooh, I like the sound of that.
Yes, I do too. I even just said that. The Easy Kill Invitational. This league won't be easy, but it will be perfect.
Yes.
Chris, where can we find you? And thanks for coming on tonight. You got anything going on? Any articles?
You can find me on Twitter at Chris Allen FFWX. You can see that like down that way right there. But yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I just had an article on Kyler Murray, his profile that just went out yesterday.
I retweeted that. I saw you had that tweeted out.
Yeah, for 4 for 4. That one came out. And then also Sports Illustrated, they decided to run a similar piece. So they actually just tweeted that out earlier this afternoon. You can find my work on both sites now. You can find it on 4 for 4, and then you can also find it on Sports Illustrated.
All right. Well, good. And I meant to ask, but we went too far. I saw you put a thing out there. Did you find someone to help you out with your Dynasty show?
Oh yes. Yeah. I found somebody. Yeah.
All right. I saw that. I'm not the guy. So we
could have rambled on something for an hour.
The perfect league will have no Dynasty settings. There'll be no keeper settings. We'll get into that, but I don't know. That's another story in my book.
Yeah, but go ahead and check out that piece if you guys ever get a chance. Actually, and I'm gonna you
need to bring that link and make sure it's in. You should right now. That link should be in our chat room right now, Chris.
I can retweet it here in just 2 seconds because
I'm closing out. Yeah.
Well, because I'm only gonna say this just because the man himself, Evan Silva, read and retweeted the link or my tweet about it.
Oh man! All right, put it out there. Let people know that you know that I don't just bring some slouch co-host.
Yeah. So I'm just throwing it out there. I got
hockey in the chat room, so we probably lost them by now.
Yeah, probably did. But I got my very first Silva bump, so I'm just going to throw that one out there.
All right. Good job. All right, guys, it's been a rough week for me. And again, after the tornado, the fact we were able to get a show out today, I was proud. Sorry we didn't get a round table out, but next week I should hopefully be back to normal. I don't know, unless we have an earthquake or a forest fire. I don't know what the hell could happen.
Who knows out here, man?
Yeah, my wife's like, what else can happen to us in the last, I keep looking at my dogs to make sure they're breathing. I said, that's
exactly
the only thing that makes my month worse is if a dog died. Knock on wood. Sorry, Shirley. Sorry, I'm not talking about you, the other dog. But yeah, that's the only thing that can make my month worse if we lost a dog now. But May, I'm glad May is over. It's the best sports month of the year. But, what can I say? It's just been a rough.
It's been a rough few days. Rough few weeks.
I do thank everybody out there. I did have a lot of people that did, put out some words for me and everything for my family. I appreciate that. So,
right.
Again, glad we could have a show tonight. Chris, thanks for coming out. Everybody in the chat room, I see Beth's now out there. Hi, Beth. Sorry we didn't have a round table. We'll get you next Tuesday night, 10 o'clock. Lenny will be back. We got a new lineup. We now have Lenny at 9, Arnie at 10, and Lou at 11. I don't know if that's every day, but I think they're trying to do that. I think we're trying to get 3 hours pretty much of just straight baseball talk right at the moment. And then Arnie and Lou will talk a little bit of anything also. So a lot of things still adding and moving things around on the network. So
okay,
for Lenny Melnick at Lenny Melnick, FantasySports.com, the Legend Sports Network. This has been Easy Kill. That's Chris Allen. Chris had a great time. Next week, part 3 of the Perfect League.
Yes.
So join us then. Chris, say goodnight.
Good night.
This has been Just a Fantasy Fan Podcast. And to keep your fantasies going, follow us at justafantasyfan.com. Say good night. Good night.